Hello. Today, we will begin Module 2, Principles of the American Republic. We will start with Section 1, Foundations of American Government. In this video, you will learn the philosophical and ideological roots of the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. We will also briefly discuss the founders and how they envisioned the country they were creating. The Declaration of Independence is one of the most influential documents in human history. The Declaration describes the order of nature from universal principles to the specific circumstance, or the definite course of action that must be followed. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. When in the course of human event, emphasize these ultimate principles can be applied to all human beings at any time in history. It becomes necessary for one people. This first part of the Declaration is not specific to the United States. Instead, these conditions can be related to any people anywhere. The document is not legally binding, but it does explain to the world the grievances against King George III and Britain's unjust rule, provide a philosophical foundation by introducing the idea of natural rights and government deriving power from the consent of the governed, and establish moral legitimacy and provide justification for revolution under principles of justice and equality. The Declaration is a document that asserts ultimate purposes, or final causes as they are called in Aristotelian philosophy. Final causes are the end purpose of an entity, the reason for its existence. You will come to know America's final cause as we go through this module. The Constitution expresses the formal causes of the nation, or how the government will pursue the purpose articulated in the Declaration. The Constitution provides a framework for governance that balances liberty and order, stipulates restrictions on power to prevent tyranny by introducing the separation of powers and checks and balances, and promotes the general welfare by establishing a government structure dedicated to justice, peace, defense, and the common good. Both the Declaration and the Constitution emphasize natural rights, equality, and consent of the governed. The Declaration establishes the principles of the American founding, and the Constitution implements them in a practical and ordered structure. The two documents strive to create a just government that protects the rights of citizens. So, you might be asking, why do we need government? James Madison said in Federalist No. 51, "What is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature?" The human need for government is fundamental. The word nation is derived from the Latin natio, which shares a common base with the word natura, or nature. Therefore, nations have been conceived as natural things. The founders knew that, however moral individually, humans can fail to do the right thing. Government is necessary to restrain and correct human failings. Governments provide security and maintain order in society. Just governments ensure fair and equal treatment of citizens. They also promote the common good by organizing resources and resolving conflicts for societal benefit. While governments need power to function, the best of them respond to the will of the people. As we will see, precautions are necessary. Those placed in charge need to be controlled by the governed in order to prevent tyranny. The founders did not envision a new country without a government. The majority of the founding fathers were men who had received a classical education. They were well read in the works of Herodotus, Thucydides, Aristotle, Cicero, Virgil, and Rousseau, often in the original Greek, Latin, and French. They were familiar with Locke and other influential Enlightenment thinkers. The debates conducted during the Constitutional Convention showcased their classical proficiency. This helps to explain the solid philosophical and theoretical foundation that supports both the Declaration and the Constitution. For some 150 years, the English colonists of the New World had been living in a time of great learning. One important aspect of the early settlers was that they were fleeing religious persecution. For the first few years, religious conformity was enforced, but, over time, the colonists adopted the ideas of civil and religious freedom. Influencing the later founders and framers was the idea of religion being respected. While they looked to the accumulated knowledge of Western civilization to understand God, nature, rights, and learning, the founders did not encourage ideas of aristocracy for the New World. They did not advocate for an established elite to govern the common folk. What the founders brought instead were principles of freedom and equality. Thomas Jefferson said, this was the object of the Declaration of Independence. Not to find out new principles, or new arguments, never before thought of, not merely to say things which had never been said before, but to place before mankind the common sense of the subject, in terms so plain and firm as to command their assent, and to justify ourselves in the independent stand we are compelled to take. Neither aiming at originality of principle or sentiment, nor yet copied from any particular and previous writing, it was intended to be an expression of the American mind, and to give to that expression the proper tone and spirit called for by the occasion. When they met in Philadelphia to sign the Declaration, the founders were subject to arrest by the British Army, not a civilian police force. Rather than being tried by local juries of their peers, they would have been taken to England, a sea voyage that could last between 6 and 8 weeks. There, they could have faced trial in courts that were beholden to the Crown. When they signed the Declaration, the founders agreed to the sentiments of the document, including the last sentence, for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This was a pledge made in the name of God to give everything they had to their cause, and it was a pledge to one another. From the general sense of right that applies to all people everywhere, the document comes to this particular circumstance. What makes up the middle portion? It's a list of 27 particulars in 17 paragraphs specifying the wrongs committed by the King of England, including imposing taxes without the consent of locally elected legislative bodies, quartering troops in private homes, and dissolving representative bodies, which interfered with the election of representatives and with the making of laws. All of these are failures to represent the people's interests. Indeed, the chief elements of the Constitution can be found in the middle section of the Declaration. Next time. Now that we have differentiated between the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, we can dig deeper into the philosophy that undergirds the American founding. We'll first start in the next video with the idea of natural rights. Until then, thank you for your time. If you want to learn more about the subjects we have discussed, here are the sources used for this section.